Is Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Torna the Lost Country any good? This is my opinion. If you know me, if you know the channel, I'm a huge fan of Xenoblade 2. Like, absolutely huge. I think it's, if not the best experience on the Switch, second to Breath of the Wild. That's how much I love it. Hundreds of hours put into the game. And they had a kind of season pass or DLC pack that came with it, and it was a lot bigger than it was originally supposed to be. So they came out with actually standalone copy of it as well. And this is the story of some of the characters of Xenoblade 2, specifically like um, the characters that maybe you thought were bad or whatever. It kind of shows what's going on with them 500 years before Xenoblade Chronicles 2. So it is a lot like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 as far as the graphics go. You're exploring some of the same areas, but they're not like as populated. One of the famous places in Xenoblade 2 is on Gormont. There's a town basically, or a city that's bustling. It's pretty much completely empty and burned down. There's a lot of different types of animals. There's a lot more creatures roaming around because it's not as civilized. Blades are, I mean, they're a lot more, I guess, common to see back then than they are now. Which, as you know, in Xenoblade 2, they're more like militaristic. You don't see a whole lot of people just running around hanging out with blades, but in this you do. So it's really cool to see that difference. The combat's a little bit different as well. You are playing basically as Adam, who is this like mythical person, this legend in Xenoblade 2, who he has a couple blades that you'll be familiar with, and some people from Mordain, Jin, people that you've seen here and there in Xenoblade 2. It's their story, and it is great at first. And I wanted to like the whole experience more, but here's the issue that I have with it. It's going along good. The story's awesome. I put 20 hours into it, and I did probably about 90% of the content, but the story's awesome. I mean, it is full-fledged. So I went in this thinking like, wow, this is going to be not hundreds of hours, but as expected, I was 30, 40 hours of like good story content. And it starts out that way, and it's really cool. It's cool getting to see the different aspects of these characters who are blades with different drivers that you saw, in the future. It's cool having some slight tweaks to the combat, but there's still that, the full burst and the element stuff. And it's cool seeing all the different stuff. But then you hit a point where you're fighting the boss, and that's like 10 hours in. You're ready to go to the final dungeon, final boss or whatever, and then it just pump the brakes. You have to build the community up to a certain level, and the way that you build community up is doing side quests. So then literally, and I was doing side quests the whole way. Like, I wasn't avoiding them. I love doing side quests, but I literally had to do side quests for like 7 hours to unlock the boss. And it really just dampened my experience. I still enjoyed it, but it was to the point, because it just felt so like forced and not at all paced well, that I wasn't even listening to the dialogue or reading the dialogue of the side quest. I was just trying to get through it to, get through that barrier. If it was paced better and those side quests were kind of more spread throughout the campaign and you were able to do them more, I probably would have been more invested in them, actually, because some of the side quests, they take quite a bit of time, but mostly they're just run or teleport to this area, find these items, and come back to me. That's kind of the gist of it. So it really just, I was cooking. This game is going to be like a 10 out of 10 game for me, and then it just like dropped down pretty hardcore. That being said, really cool climax, really good story. I just wish it was paced better. But after it was done, I went back to do more side quests to get my community up more, to try to 100% it. So as much as I can say that really dampened the experience, I was still going and beating them after I didn't even need to. So, and that's just because the game has awesome combat. It's not quite as in-depth, I feel, as Xenoblade Chronicles 2. You can switch between the blades and the drivers, similar, but it is different. It is quite a bit different, the pacing of it. But I'm not going to get into too much detail there with it. But go in with your expectations in check. This is not on the same level as Xenoblade 1 or Xenoblade 2. This is totally DLC that they put on a cart. And I still think you should play it to get the whole story, especially if you love the first Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Or if you want to, you play Xenoblade Chronicles 1 now because it just came out on Switch and you want to get more of the story, I definitely recommend playing it still. Just know that you're going to hit that point where you got to kind of just stop and do a bunch of side quests. And it's, I don't know. It really brought down a great game. But that's just my opinion.